The strength of a team comes from the standards and the agreements we make with each other. Everyone has the opportunity to buy in and say yes to something or no. That's what makes it a standard. It's not a rule, it's not some arbitrary benchmark that one person came up with and everybody has to fall in line with. When we make a standard on a men's team, we all declare something and everybody raises their hand and says, I'm in. I commit to this. Most people in your life will give you a pass or make excuses for you when you break your word. But what's the actual cost of having people around you who will do that? I'm going to share a story with you to explain the cost of this. About 10 years ago, when I was sitting up with the men's team, we had a comprehensive list of standards, baseline expectations that we made for ourselves that established what the floor was. This is what we all expected from one another. And one of those standards was to have our team artifact at every single meeting. One time, there was a man who was responsible for bringing this artifact to the meeting. And because we set the standard that if we didn't have the artifact, we wouldn't have our meeting, that man showed up without it and was sent home. 2 hours round trip to go and retrieve the artifact before we could start our meeting. Now, as you could expect, there was a lot of resistance from this man. There were even other men on the team who questioned, why are we doing this? We're all gonna sit here for 2 hours while we wait for this man to go and grab the artifact that we need to get started here? Why are we holding this so rigidly? And you see, that's exactly what the rest of the world will do. Look for the easy way out. Look for the shortcut. Look for the lowering of the standard so that we can squeeze under the bar without having to do the uncomfortable thing. But there was one man on that team who stood up and said, as soon as we lower the bar, everything else we said no longer matters. Everything else that we said we're committed to, the rigor that we have around how we show up in support of each other, the way we're committed to showing up in our lives, none of it matters anymore. Either everything matters, even the small, seemingly insignificant things, or none of it does. And the moment he said that, we all sat back and we knew exactly what he was saying. Because we knew that we're susceptible to do that everywhere else in our lives. And I bet you are too. Everywhere that you missed the mark, you forgot something, you broke your word, whether it was consciously or unconsciously, all of us have those moments where we come up against what we said we were going to do and what actually happened. So that day, that man got in his car, drove all the way back home, retrieved the artifact, brought it to the meeting, and we started our meeting 2 hours late. And because of that, even though it was 2 hours of sitting there, even though we all got home 2 hours later than we were supposed to, we all felt the bar go up instead of down. Now, what's the cost to lowering the bar in your life? If you want to become a trustworthy person, if you want to become somebody that people around you always depend on, it's because you're constantly raising the bar, meeting the bar where it is and then pushing it a little bit higher. Nobody trusts somebody who lowers the bar so that they can squeeze underneath it. Nobody can really count on someone who's constantly making excuses, constantly apologizing because they didn't follow through on what they said they were going to do. That's not the type of person that anybody wants to be. But when we live our lives where standards are fluid, where my word is negotiable, then I can't really be counted on by people. And although people will act kind on the surface and say, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal, we all know that under the surface, it is a big deal. Maybe that person is not gonna get mad at you and yell at you for forgetting something or not doing what you said, but are they gonna call you next time they really need something? Are you gonna be able to count on yourself when you really need to show up for something difficult? You see, that's the value of setting the bar and meeting the bar. It's a practice that we have to do as humans, as men. We have to practice making commitments, setting the tone for how we want to be in our lives and with each other, and prove to ourselves that we can meet that challenge. The strength of a team comes from the standards and the agreements we make with each other. Everyone has the opportunity to buy in and say yes to something or no. That's what makes it a standard. It's not a rule. It's not some arbitrary benchmark that one person came up with and everybody has to fall in line with. When we make a standard on a men's team, we all declare something and everybody raises their hand and says, I'm in. I commit to this. I commit to making sure the artifact is at the team meeting. I commit to being punctual and on time. I commit to having a vision, to owning my commitments, to cleaning things up when I fall out of integrity. Those are examples of standards that we have on men's teams here in Rising Man. And that's what creates a strong container. So that if a man breaks a standard or falls out of line with a standard, there's a consequence given. Because if we don't meet that standard with a consequence, then the bar gets lower. If we look the other way when a man shows up 5 minutes late, or give someone a pass when they break the protocol, then all of the standards get lower, just like everywhere else in our lives. And I can't emphasize how important the strength of this practice is, because the more you practice setting the bar high and meeting it, and then setting the bar higher and meeting it, you're going to become a more trustworthy and confident person. It just happens. I believe in myself more when I prove that I can show up and make things that matter really matter. I prioritize those things. I do whatever it takes to follow through on what I said. And that's what empowers us to become the men that we want to be here. Making commitments, setting standards is how we build trust in all of our relationships. Men, women, children, everywhere across our lives. But especially on a men's team, setting those standards and practicing upholding and keeping those standards high, making them count, is what builds that type of long-lasting, enduring trust that you'll be able to count on through any adversity in life. The power of a men's team comes from the willingness to hold the standard and keep it high. A wise man on my team once told me that if we're not raising the standard, then we're lowering it. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, not just on a men's team or in an organization, but in your individual life. If you're not pushing that bar higher, you're letting it settle and fall down. So here's an actionable step for you. Maybe you've never heard of standards before. What I want you to do is I want you to take inventory of the things that matter most to you. What is one priority in your life that you're willing to treat as a non-negotiable, where you're willing to set the bar for yourself and prove that you can prioritize that regardless of anything that might try to get in your way? Maybe it's no matter what, I exercise at least 3 times a week. Or no matter what I do, I make sure I drink a gallon of water a day. Maybe outside of the physical realm. No matter what I do, I will never take advantage of a woman. I will never be dishonest to my partner. Whatever that standard is for you, the one that you can identify that makes the most difference in your life, pick that one out and let that be the benchmark. There's no territory below that line. The line is where you start. That's where your life and your actions begin. Above that bar, raising the bar, pushing it higher, instead of 3 times a week, I'm going to work out a minimum of 4 times a week. That's the direction to go. We're not going to lower it. We're only going to push it higher. So make sure whatever that one priority is, whatever that first standard that you're going to declare is, make sure that it matters. Make sure that you know why you're going to declare that as a standard. Because as a team, if we didn't remember why we chose to send that man home and go retrieve the artifact, if we couldn't remember that that was symbolic of everything we said on the team mattering, then maybe we would have given him a pass. Maybe we wouldn't have all been on board and enrolled in sending him home. But because we made that matter and we set the line there, we all sat there for 2 hours and it made us a stronger team. So if you're inspired and motivated to become a more reliable, trustworthy man, then go to risingman.org and book a call with our team today so we can help you become one. And make sure you tune in next week for episode 2 of this series, The Way of the Rising Man, where we're going to go deeper into our credo and the core principles that make us who we are.